I'm here from War on One, which, if you don't know already, we're a charity, we're an NGO. We have partners all over the world, and I think the way we work, we really see that we're working with the people who are very much at the front line, the fight against globalisation, the fight against the neoliberal policies which have done so much damage over the last 30 years. So whether that is in South Africa, where we're working with the people there who are at the front line of actually, reattaching slum communities to the electricity network there so that electricity isn't privatised, or whether it's in Bangladesh, where it's about workers who are working in the sweatshops there, and they're actually trying to unionise and actually trying to get a proper living wage and unionisation for their workers who are providing the cheap clothes that are being sold in the UK, or whether it's actually the people who are at the front line of the other side of this system, the occupations and the wars, whether it's people fighting against the occupation in Iraq and actually fighting against the sell-off of their oil to corporations like Shell and BP, or whether it's people in places like Colombia who are fighting the human rights abuses that they're facing every day and the killings of unionists there who are defending their communities. So, we really feel that what's important is that when we're campaigning here, that we're really bringing those messages, because it's those people there who have had to fight this system for the last 30 years. I think what's really key is that it's just been a fantastic day to actually be out in the city today, to be here and to have been on the streets of London on Saturday, where we also had such a massive cross-section of the unions out. We haven't seen unions out like that for a long, long time. And we had the climate change campaigners there, and they've been also in the streets of the city today in Climate Camp. So just this sense of people coming out on the streets here, because we know that this is a system that needs to change. And I just want to talk a little bit about what we are seeing, what we've seen for the poorest and the most vulnerable who've been affected by this system of globalisation, of unfettered free market policies, and what they've done to the poorest countries the last 30 years. Because we know that the trading system has led to millions and millions of job losses across the world. In sub-Saharan Africa, whole industries have been decimated by a system of opening up their markets, of policies that are about the greed of companies in the UK, in Europe, in North America, that have been using the trading system to destroy people's lives. We've also got the policies of tax. Suddenly tax is on the agenda like it's never been before, which is incredible. But the reason it's on the agenda is because £250 billion are being lost every year to the global south through companies avoiding and evading tax. And I think what's been really important today is going to the City of London, because it's the City of London that is the biggest tax haven in the world. That's where the corporate lawyers are, that's where the tax avoiders are, and they're stealing the money from countries in the south who need that money and need it more than ever at the moment. And it's Britain that has over half the world's tax havens. So we know that on issues like tax, we've been part of this system that has spent the last 30 years making sure that countries don't get the opportunity to build themselves out of poverty. And yet we're throwing a bit of aid, but we're taking at least 5 times more back in tax and capital flight from the south. So we've seen them failed that way. But not only that, we're seeing them being failed by the policies of war and occupation. And I think we can't look at this economic system without looking at the imperialist system that's been going hand in hand with it. And just one example of that we've been working on is the issue of privatisation of war. Almost in Iraq, you've seen the example of where it's become most intertwined, where warfare is being sold off to the highest bidder. And even now, you have private armies that are being sold off to the highest bidder. And we're even seeing that in Palestine as well, where checkpoints, Israel's actually handing over checkpoints to private security contractors. So you're seeing that occupation being privatised and handed over. The Israelis can keep their hands off while the Palestinians suffer. So we have to make those connections, and we are. But the thing that really gets me is that when we're looking at what's going to happen happen tomorrow. We know some of these issues are on their agenda tomorrow. You know, Gordon Brown is seeing this as a chance for him to show that he can deal with these issues. But the draft communique, the communique of what is actually going to come out of the G20 tomorrow was leaked a few days ago. And if you just look at some of the things that have come out in that, you really get a taste of what they're trying to do. We know that the first line of it was reaffirming their faith in the market, that the market solutions are going to be the way out of this crisis. They got in their tax, but they basically said that if a few countries share some information with the UK or Germany, then that's fine. So I think they know they're missing some of their tax wealth. We know that £100 billion is being lost to the British economy through tax avoidance, but they don't actually want to deal with the issue of tax havens, of the secrecy and the low taxation and the forcing economies to have very low tax and tax breaks for countries. So they're not dealing with that, they're dealing with the bit that bothers them. And on trade, they're actually pushing through the World Trade Organization Doha round talks. They've actually got there right at the top that these talks need to take place and these talks need to be finished. And what's incredible is that systematically and consistently has been something that's been blocked by developing countries. It's been blocked by the poorest countries, and we've been out on the streets saying that this shouldn't happen for a long time. So the idea that they're using this crisis, they're using this system to actually resurrect some of the worst aspects of this economic system and to push the failed policies, the policies that even the most right-wing commentators here are admitting have failed us and need to be changed. They still want to push them on the South. So they haven't learnt their lesson. They're going to use this to strengthen the IMF, to strengthen the World Bank, to strengthen the WTO, and actually ensure that when we come out of this crisis, this system comes out intact. So what I think is crucial is that we stay on the streets and we keep fighting. We keep showing that we're organised and we're mobilising, because they are nervous about what world public opinion is saying. And we've got to make sure that when we're out on the streets, we're representing the voices of the South as well, because we're all in this together. And I think what's been really important, and certainly when we're at the WSF in Belém, and also on the streets in many capital cities in Europe, and in Brazil, there's been lots of demonstrations in the last few weeks and months, is people have been saying that we won't pay for your crisis. And this works, you know, this is a slogan that works for everybody, and it particularly works for the South. So let's keep organising and keep out on the streets, and thanks for coming today.